Back in high school and throughout early college, I used to receive these boxes from my grandfather in Puerto Rico. Now, he and I were not that close at the time, but he would send what he could to connect with us. And inside these boxes were a bunch of mangoes. I was skeptical at first, but as soon as I bit into these mangoes, they became the best tasting mangoes I've ever had in my entire life. Now, I know I sound biased, but I want you all to do me a favor. Think of your favorite food. Where did it come from? What does it smell like? What does it taste like? These mangoes were that times 10. They were not too sweet, but sweet enough. They were so juicy, they would leave this fragrance on your skin that would last for days, making you think of palm trees and the warm sun. When my mother bit into these mangoes, she would light up. She used to tell me stories of summers of her going back to the island and what that meant to her. But when I bit into these mangoes, I felt connected to someone or something. Fast forward a couple years in my life, I started making my own trip with a bigger appetite for this kind of connection. I found a beautiful culture that came in many different shades, that was so welcoming. It felt promising to me. So much, in fact, I started bringing others with me to the island in search of that same connection. But on September 20th, 2017, the most catastrophic natural disaster hit the island, Hurricane Maria, sending loved ones into a panic and those on the island into survival mode. I kept thinking to myself, I was just there. It just started to feel like home. I would hear countless stories of devastation, and those that were on the island were already struggling prior to the hurricane. I knew this because I saw it. They were left with even fewer options now. As I stayed in touch with organizations on the ground, they let me know that many are leaving, not because of their love of the culture, but because they needed to survive. They needed to provide for their family, kind of like my grandfather and my grandmother did when they started theirs, when they started me. In the midst of all this, I was getting my strategic design thinking MBA. I loved the program. I had this kind of when can we start attitude, never shying from something, always running towards chaos. So design gave me the tools and the confidence to even take that approach further. Design teaches you how to leverage empathy and creativity and weave them together to devise new options and new opportunities. But I don't think my education would have taught me how to tackle Maria, how to take that challenge. With a push from my older brother, we decided to head to the island a few short months after the hurricane to do whatever we could. The first thing that we learned was that empathy is easier said than done. Design teaches you to document all that you do, document all your observations and your interviews. But each time I pulled out my notebook, I felt stares. Each time I pulled out my notebook, I felt like I was ignoring the pain and reality of those I was talking to. The one time I decided not to pull out my notebook was when this woman decided to tell me a story. She told me about a mango tree that lived in the center of her town and pretty much the center of the island. They called this the Sentinel, which means guardian or protector. This represented history and wisdom for the people on the island, especially for those in her town. This mango tree was over 100 years old. That's older than my own civil rights. It represented hope, prosperity, and strength and safety. I felt that connection spark in me again. I could smell the mangoes from my grandfather. This tree has lasted many seasons and carried with it so much wisdom. But unfortunately, it did not last against Maria. Exhausted, devastated, I found myself seeing the world differently. As we walked throughout the island, I started noticing the changes, the lack of people, and I started seeing Airbnbs pop up everywhere. The culture that I connected with was starting to blend and fade. Something in me wanted to fight. Something in me wanted to buy up all the property that I could, but my student loans wouldn't let me do that, actually. I remember something, that even though I don't have much, neither did my grandfather when he sent me those mangoes. So I decided I was going to leverage all that I had to help anyone that I could. I started going back to the island, speaking with the youth there, understanding, what do I need to help you with in order for you to have the things you need to rebuild? I've learned that they are brilliant, resourceful, and resilient themselves. And all that they really were requesting was more opportunities, more resources, and more connections. So that when can we start attitude kicked in. Great, I'll start some workshops. I'll teach design thinking to entrepreneurs. I'll start up businesses to help you guys and help thrive. I even tried pitching co-working spaces and recruitment services, but doing good was getting harder to scale, especially alone. And let's face it, I was basically on a mission to stop the human brain drain. Talk about boiling the ocean. I needed to look within myself and for others to figure out, what can I do? I started thinking that I can't be the only one doing this. And in fact, I learned about a theater group called Y no había luz, which means, and there was no light. They got together after the hurricane to tour and spread hope amongst everyone on the island. They told a story about a mango tree, and how this mango tree was the sentinel of the island. How this mango tree was over 100 years old and was the strongest tree to ever be known. They told how this mango tree fought against Maria and asked in its gusts of winds to take its seeds and spread it across the earth to grow more sentinels. It was in this moment that I realized I had way much more of a deeper connection to these mangoes than its taste or a plane ticket. It was a reminder that I am a seed. I was planted for a reason. Through the economic winds that have taken people from one place to another, I was planted, I was nourished, and I have grown. I, like other generations of people born out of migration, I was sent to gain more opportunities, to gain more resources. My grandfather wasn't just sending me these mangoes as a form of remittance or a way to give back to his family. It was to keep us connected. It was a reminder that I was planted for a reason and that there needs to be this exchange of seeds and opportunities, that I too had mangoes to send back of my own. It was interesting because up until that moment, I was struggling so much trying to figure out what I could do. I was essentially trying to stop the human brain drain instead of embracing it. Because to be honest, I am a product of it. I started messaging that we need to retain those on the island instead of inspiring or empowering other seeds that have been planted elsewhere to grow. When you guys leave today, I want you to take a look. Look outside around you, especially in this beautiful city of Philadelphia. You'll find traces of history, culture, and progress cultivated by us seeds. We have recreated our homes so well that it's no surprise actually, that we have forgotten our way. We have lost our connection. But our homes still need us. And yes, it might have taken me a few years, a couple challenges, and let's face it, a couple boxes of mangoes, which I do not regret eating. But I'm ready to answer that call, and I have. So today I want to share with you, if you're taking on that journey yourself, here are some lessons that I have learned that might help you along the way. 1, doing good needs to scale. This means doing things together with measurable outcomes and a shared purpose. It also means don't boil the ocean, boil a pot. Focus on projects that unlock the greater good, not trying to save the world. 2, build communities of believers. The truth was, I wasn't alone. I wasn't the only one trying to help. In fact, the Puerto Rican diaspora of 5.6 million seeds is active and strong. It just wasn't clear to me who they were, what they did, and how we can work together. I know one day we'll create platforms that will make it easier for people who are doing good finding others like them. But until then, take time. Find your people. Put a call out to them. Build communities of believers, because together you'll go farther. 3, opportunities shouldn't have boundaries. No matter where you are, there should be flexible ways for you to engage with that community. Like thriving ecosystems, there also needs to be a diversity of its players. So whether you're hands-on or would like to share your wisdom without getting on a plane, there needs to be an option for you. We limit ourselves and our impact when we put constraints around participation. It's 2019, and over 50% of our US workforce already has adopted flexible ways of working, like remote-based work. It's time that social good does too. 4, data equals dots. So in order to connect them, we must first collect them. At the root of scaling needs to be an intentional focus on our outcomes that we desire, as well as the metrics to track how we're doing. If you are trying to do good, you need to make sure that you're looking for ways to move forward. You need to make sure that you're collecting the data points that will tell your story. When we consciously measure and share our small wins, we unlock opportunities for larger cooperatively. 5, the way we give should fit the way we live. So I know investing sounds like a big term, maybe even a big ask, but it doesn't have to be. I learned about a formula from Taylor Conroy that explains one way of putting all these lessons together. Simply put, if your hometown has a community center of which its gym needs to be fixed, and in this gym, it was a watering hole. It represented a watering hole for youth to find a way out of that town. If you could find 33 people who believed in that gym, and they invested $3.33 daily for 3 months, that's kind of like a coffee a day. Together, that would reach almost $10,000 that you can not only fix that gym, but create more programs. That doesn't seem too big, does it? There needs to be even more ways for us to invest in these kinds of opportunities. The way we give shouldn't fit the way we live. My brother and I are following these steps now, and we invite anyone to become a part of our community of believers, because we understand that we live in a world that is constantly asking us to take action, to stand up and be the voices of the places that we call home. And we can't answer that call alone. I'd love to sit here and send you each a mango from my grandfather's tree, but I hope my talk today reminds you that you are a seed, and you were planted for a reason. So wherever you are, grow. And remember, the future needs a seed exchange. Thank you.